Gentlemen, listen up. This message is for the ones who've let themselves fall into the trap of weak, desperate behavior, who've sacrificed their self-respect on the altar of female approval. You're out here simping, bending over backward for women, and all you're getting in return is disappointment, frustration, and most importantly, weakness. If you're the guy who thinks constantly chasing her will win her heart, you're dead wrong. The moment she senses that you've lost your edge, the moment she feels you've lost interest, that's when she'll truly notice you. And not for the reasons you think. Let's face it, most of you have been trained by the world to give, and give. You've been taught that love is about sacrifice, and that respect is earned through submission. But that's not how it works. The true power in relationships doesn't come from desperate validation, it comes from strength. Your value is not defined by how much you bend to her will, or how many hoops you'll jump through to prove you're worthy of her time. It's the exact opposite. Your power, your attraction, and your masculinity come from the moment you stop chasing and the moment you stop caring what she thinks. 1. When you lose interest, she starts paying attention. Let me tell you something. A woman will always test you, whether you realize it or not. If you're always at her beck and call, she doesn't see you as a man worthy of her respect. She sees you as an option, a convenience, a side dish, nothing more. That's how the game is played, and if you're playing by the wrong rules, you'll lose every single time. The moment you lose interest in her, she's forced to look at you differently. That's when she starts wondering, what's going on with him? Why is he pulling away? Why isn't he chasing me like he used to? And guess what, guys? This shift doesn't happen because you've become rude or indifferent overnight. It happens because you've reestablished control over your life. You've stopped putting her on a pedestal, and you're no longer out here trying to prove you're worthy. You've learned something critical. You're already enough. Look at the principles of the Stoic philosophers. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, was one of the most powerful men in history, yet he lived by the belief that his value didn't come from the approval of others. His strength didn't come from constant admiration, but from the understanding that he controlled his own fate. It's the same principle when it comes to women. If you find yourself obsessed with their approval, you're nothing more than a puppet. 2. The moment you stop chasing, she realizes your worth. Let's be honest. Many of you have been sold the lie that if you act nice enough, if you cater to her every need, if you just do everything right, she'll magically fall in love with you. But here's the truth. Women don't fall for the guy who acts like a beta male, constantly trying to earn her affection. You don't want to be the guy who does everything right and gets overlooked. No, you want to be the man who isn't easily available, who has his own life, who doesn't bend to her whims. When you lose interest, the woman doesn't feel rejected. She doesn't feel slighted. She feels intrigued. She's caught off guard. She begins to feel the absence of your attention, the absence of your desire. And in that absence, she starts to realize something crucial. She was taking you for granted. The moment you stop chasing, she suddenly sees the value you bring. This isn't just about playing games, it's about having a life of your own. Look at the classic story of James Bond. Do you think women fall for him because he's desperate or overeager? Hell no. They fall for him because he's always on his mission. His focus is always on his own path, his own goals, and the women around him are drawn to that strength. And that's the lesson, men. It's not about chasing women. It's about being the guy who has his own mission, his own purpose. Women will come to respect you when they see that you're not just some weak guy waiting for validation. You're a man with direction. Remember, your value doesn't depend on her attention. It's not about her liking you. It's about whether you've built your life in such a way that her presence adds value to it, not the other way around. Never forget that. Now, let's dive deeper into the real reasons why losing interest changes everything. 3. The shift in power dynamic. The moment she notices that you've lost interest, she senses a shift in the power dynamic. She starts to wonder if she's losing control over you, and this instinctively turns the tables in a way that you can't even predict. Up until this point, she might have had you under her thumb. She was the one calling the shots, dictating the terms of the relationship, and you were just along for the ride, hoping to get approval, affection, or worse, validation. But when you stop chasing her, when you take a step back, suddenly she's no longer the one calling the shots. You've reestablished your control. And trust me, that's exactly what she doesn't want to happen. Women are wired to test men, to see if they can dominate them, to see if they can get them to bend. But once she realizes she can't manipulate you anymore, her entire perception of you shifts. She goes from seeing you as a follower to seeing you as a leader. And here's the kicker. She might not even realize it consciously, but on a primal level, she's attracted to that power. Look at ancient warriors, men like Spartans or the legendary samurai. These men didn't bend to the whims of women. They had their own code, their own purpose. A Spartan didn't fight battles because some woman asked him to. He fought because he was born into a warrior class, and he had an unshakable belief in his own strength. Women were drawn to these men because they were commanders of their own destiny. When you stop putting a woman on a pedestal, when you take a step back and don't chase her like you're some puppy dog, you start to control the situation. You're no longer caught up in her drama, and she begins to see that you're not someone who needs her. You've got your own life to live, your own mission to accomplish. And that, my friends, is where the real attraction begins. 4. Women are attracted to men who aren't desperate. Now, let's talk about desperation. If you think for 1 second that desperate behavior is going to win a woman over, you're living in a fantasy. Desperation doesn't create attraction, it repels it. When a woman sees that you're overly eager, overly compliant, or overly needy, what does she think? She thinks you're weak. You're a man who has no other options, no other direction, and she will not respect you for it. Desperation comes from a place of fear. It's the fear of losing her, of not being good enough, of feeling like your entire self-worth is tied to her approval. But this mindset is deadly. It's the very thing that makes you lose your masculinity and power. A man who is desperate for approval is a man who has no real purpose, no real identity. His identity becomes tied to what she thinks of him, and that's when things go downhill. But when you lose interest, you remove the desperation. And when that happens, the woman starts to feel the change in energy. Now you're no longer clinging to her every word or constantly checking your phone, waiting for a text. You've got your own life, your own goals, and that makes you irresistible. You know what I'm talking about when I mention characters like Clint Eastwood's character in Dirty Harry. The guy doesn't chase anyone. He doesn't beg for anyone's approval. He's got a mission, and if you're not on board, he couldn't care less. That is the energy women are drawn to. It's not arrogance. It's self-respect and purpose. When you stop chasing her, she'll respect you for it. She might even get annoyed at first, but deep down, that's exactly what she wants. Women are naturally drawn to self-sufficient men, and a man who is willing to walk away from any situation if it doesn't serve him is a man who commands respect. 5. The false feminine power trap. Let's get one thing straight right now, and I need you to understand this. The notion that women have power over men is a lie. It's a narrative that's been shoved down our throats by media, society, and the popular culture machine. The truth is, a man who stands firm in his power, who controls his life, cannot be dominated by anyone. But that doesn't stop the world from trying to convince you that women are the ones who hold all the cards in a relationship. This is a false feminine power trap that has been sold to men for generations. The idea that women are the ones who control the relationship, the dynamic, the power, is absolute nonsense. When you start losing interest in her, when you begin to regain your strength, the power shifts. suddenly she's the one chasing. Suddenly, she's the one trying to earn your approval. This doesn't mean you play games or manipulate her. It means you've stopped handing over your power. You want an example? Look at the movie The Godfather. Don Vito Corleone, the head of the family, doesn't care about begging for anyone's favor. He doesn't chase anyone. His power doesn't come from a woman's approval. It comes from his ability to take control of his world, to dictate the terms of his life. Women are attracted to him not because he chases them, but because he leads. The truth is, the man who stops chasing is the man who holds the cards. Women can't respect a man who's always trying to please them, and they won't be attracted to him for long. You might get short-term attention from a woman if you give her all your energy, but you'll never earn her long-term respect or true attraction. She might stick around for the ego boost, but eventually she will lose interest because you don't offer anything to challenge her, nothing to keep her on her toes. Here's the thing. If you've ever felt like a woman was slipping away or that you were losing her attention, it's probably because you've let her steal your power. You've been so busy trying to make her feel special that you forgot to make yourself feel powerful. Now, it's time to flip the script. And this is where you need to start playing by a completely different set of rules. 6. The destructive belief that you need to earn her love. Let's talk about something that's been drilled into men's heads for centuries. The idea that you have to earn her love. You hear this all the time, right? You have to show her you care. You have to put in the effort. You need to prove that you're worthy of her. But that's a lie. This destructive belief has kept countless men stuck in cycles of desperation, self-doubt, and frustration. It makes men think that their worth is determined by a woman's approval, and that's where the rot sets in. I want you to understand this. You don't have to earn her love. You simply need to be the man who's worthy of love by living a life of integrity, strength, and purpose. You're already enough as you are. If she doesn't see your worth, then that's on her, not you. But the moment you start acting like her validation is the end-all be-all, you become weak. You stop being the man you were meant to be, and you start becoming a version of yourself that only exists to satisfy her emotional needs. This belief that you need to prove yourself or jump through hoops to get her to love you is a trap. Women are drawn to men who don't bend and beg. They're drawn to men who don't live for their attention. Think about the great leaders, the men who shaped history. They didn't seek approval from anyone. They had a vision, a mission, and they lived according to their principles. Think about Marcus Aurelius again. The man ruled the Roman Empire, but he didn't beg for anyone's love or attention. He didn't let anyone dictate his worth. He focused on his own path and his own purpose, and that's why people respected him, including the women who came into his life. You see, when you stop trying to earn her love by proving you're worthy, you start to command respect without even trying. Respect is earned by the man who stands firm in his beliefs and actions, not by the man who panders to someone else's whims. Stop asking for permission to be yourself. Stop seeking validation. You don't need to prove you're worthy of a woman's attention. You're already worthy simply by being the man who has his own life, his own value, and his own self-respect. 7. The power of walking away. Here's where it all comes full circle. You want to know the real power in relationships? It's the power of walking away. The power of knowing that you're willing to lose her if it means maintaining your integrity, your strength, and your masculinity. This isn't about being emotionally cold or callous. It's about being willing to walk away from anything that doesn't serve your mission, your purpose, and your happiness. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You don't need her approval. And when you walk away, when you let her see that you're not afraid to lose her, that's when she begins to realize your worth. That's when she starts chasing you, trying to get back into your world because she feels the absence of your power and energy. She feels the shift. The tables have turned. And that is when you regain the upper hand. Look, I'm not talking about pulling childish stunts or trying to play hard to get. This is about a man who is comfortable in his own skin, who knows he has the power to walk away from any situation that doesn't serve his higher purpose. A man who walks away doesn't chase. He understands that his life is too valuable to waste on anyone who isn't fully invested in it. If you want to look at a real-world example, take a look at the classic story of the bad boy archetype. I'm not talking about some douchebag who disrespects women or acts like a jerk for no reason. I'm talking about the man who simply doesn't need the woman to complete him. He's already whole. When he's in a relationship, he's not waiting around for her to affirm his worth. He's living his life, focused on his own goals. And when she senses that he doesn't need her to be happy, she begins to respect him. She starts to view him as a challenge, something worth fighting for. Remember the lone wolf. The man who has his own mission, who isn't desperate for love or approval. That man doesn't fear losing a woman, because he knows that if she doesn't see his worth, he'll move on. And that is where the power lies. You might be thinking, but isn't this just about playing hard to get? No, it's not. This is about self-respect. It's about setting boundaries and knowing when to walk away. It's about being willing to leave behind a relationship that's draining you, that's making you less of the man you're supposed to be. Let me ask you this. Would you rather be the man who loses himself in a relationship, or the man who keeps his power, his integrity, and his mission intact? The choice is yours. Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, and if you're still with me, you should be feeling the weight of this message. Here's the thing. You've got to take back your power. Every time you've sacrificed your self-respect for the sake of a woman's attention or approval, you've lost a piece of yourself. It's time to stop that. It's time to become the man who commands respect, not the man who chases validation. Stop chasing women. Stop trying to earn their love. Stop being desperate for their approval. Instead, focus on becoming the man who is already enough, who already has a life of his own, and who will walk away from anyone who doesn't add value to his world. When you lose interest, you gain everything. You gain your self-respect, you gain your power, and you start to see women in a completely different light. They'll be drawn to you not because you're desperate, but because you understand your worth. And when that happens, that's when you truly start to control the relationship. So, take the lessons from this video to heart. Start living for yourself. Set your boundaries. Stop begging for her attention. And remember, you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already complete as you are. If you found value in this message, subscribe and start living your life with purpose, with power, and with the confidence that you are the one who is in control. Don't be weak. Don't be desperate. Be the man who commands respect. See you in the next one.